In this video, I'm going to pick up where I left off in the last one, but now I'm going to talk about how to use shapes in InDesign. The first thing that you're going to do is look over in the tools the toolbar to look for shapes. So something I want to point out is kind of like how in the properties panel, let's just look at this. If I click in here, we'll get these options here. Fill, and we're going to talk about this with color, but fill doesn't have an underline and stroke does. So things that have underlines, you can click on them and you get a bunch of options. The same thing is kind of true on the toolbar. Things that have little arrows have options that you can click on, and things that don't, like the selection tool is just the selection tool, but the shape tool has a few options. You can make a rectangle, an ellipse, or a polygon. We're going to stick with the rectangle tool. And another way to make shapes is by using the pen tool. So the pen tool is right there. You can see the arrows. So let's just start with the rectangle because it's a little bit simpler. And for now, I want to be on the shapes tool, the shapes layer or layer 1. I don't really want to be on the text tool the text layer, because we're not talking about text. I don't want to change my text right now. And I'm also going to lock this layer, and that will make it so that way I don't accidentally hit it. Okay, I'm going to just drag out a box. And we can tell that we're on layer 1 or the one with the shapes because it's blue. This box is blue and the shapes is blue. And also note that there's really nothing in this box right now. This box is just an empty box. There's nothing in it. Now, the way that we would get something in it is by hitting fill. If we hit, not the word fill, but the box, this box right here, is the fill box, and we can fill it with any of these default colors. I would actually advise, rather than using the default colors, using the color that you have decided to use for your book. And I think I'm actually going to use this like sickly green color because it's a book that focuses on some illness and sci-fi stuff. But again, we're actually not using like colors per se. We're going to be using just black and white just for this first draft, but I just want to show you what it looks like when there are colors. So that's how you would fill it with a color. If you were going to use the pen tool, you can just draw shapes by dropping points. Now we've made this weird shape. I can fill it with, let's say, black, right? The other thing you can do is add a stroke. You can make the stroke bigger or smaller. So these are shapes. And shapes can be really great. They really can help add stuff to your page. Now, if I go back to my thumbnail over here, what I'm looking at here is that I wanted to design a picture frame and then have my text inside. Okay, so how would I do that is I have this picture frame, and I think that I'm just going to hide my text so that way I don't get distracted by it. So I just hit the eyeball, so now everything that's on this layer is not visible. And I'm going to drag out another box. I'm actually just going to use my margins as a good guide point for this. And now, I can select both of them by just dragging over. And this gives you some cool options that you can do with your shapes. Notice that it can't tell what the fill is because these two boxes are filled with different things. This has no fill, this has this green color fill. Now what I want to do is cut the inside out of I want to cut this part out of my shape, so I'm just going to find Pathfinder down here and just cut it right out. And now I have this picture frame kind of thing. If I turn my text back on, I can now unlock this and try to move things around inside this picture frame. And that kind of changes how my book is looking, my cover is looking. I can hit W to get preview mode. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. I think I would want maybe my picture frame to be a little thicker, but actually, you know what, I want to try one of my other thumbnails. This one right here I think might be more interesting. And I just want to point out, this is just a color on white with black. Not so interesting. But let's try looking at values and how we can make the values different to add some contrast and depth. So right now we have this black frame, and we have the black text, and we have this white. I'm going to make another shape behind this. And I want to fill it in with black. But really, I don't want to fill it in with black, I want to fill it in with gray. So over here, where it says tint, we can get kind of like a value scale. And you can see it if we were to look here. 100% is the pure color, and then the color can get lighter and lighter as you tint it more. So I want this to be a pretty light tint. So a light gray. Now I can hit V to get my arrow tool back. And I also need to, I'm going to hit W. Well, let's click away. I'm going to hit W so we can get our guides back. And let's just look at the layers. Right now, I want this light color to be the background color. And I want this, I wanted my frame to be on top. So I'm going to just drag this down. Now if we hit W, we have a picture frame with a background, and we have these words. We can also make the words lighter. They don't have to be this bright black color. They can be darker. I actually think that it's better to have the words dark than the frame, so rather than changing the words, which I could do using the same principle of changing the tint, instead what I'm going to do is hit the selection tool. I'm going to get this, and I want to make this a lighter tint. We can just move that around. Okay, so I already think this is looking a little better than it was before. Again, I think that this needs more space. So we can maybe make this a little smaller. 36. Okay. And I can move that over. Okay, so I think it's looking a little better. If I look at my thumbnail again, I want to try out this version, because I think it takes up space a little more interestingly than just this plain one. Now, we do have two documents. I don't need to keep changing things from here. Rather, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a second version over here. Now, I don't want to have to redo everything, so I'm just going to select everything. You can also hit Command or Control A. That will select everything. Now, if I hit copy and paste, it's going to copy it all onto one layer, which I don't want. So instead, what I'm going to do, I just zoomed out by hitting Command or Control minus. Now, if I hit W, I'll get my guides back. If you hit Option or Alt on your keyboard, you'll get these double arrows, and that's going to let you duplicate things. And duplicating will let you get everything again, but without losing your layers. Okay, so now we're back, and we have a second copy of this book, but I'm going to change it quite drastically. First, I'm going to drag my text off of the book cover. Now I'm just going to reshape this. Notice that it kind of warps right now the shape of this frame is really getting warped. I'm going to hold Shift down, and Shift will constrain the proportions. Although now it's not fitting the right way on the page, I can rotate it over here. And that fits a little bit better. Shift again. The other option we have is just making a totally new box. I just always prefer to not make new things if I don't have to. But we can alter this. You can change it you can move the points. That lets you alter the shapes. And now I would need to move these points up. I can use my arrow key to do that. We can move the shape down if we want it to, but again, that will change the proportions of things. Anyway, so that's how you can move shapes around. And then I can put my book title in, M.T. Anderson. And if I keep messing around with this, I can make something that I'm pretty happy with. I think something I wanted to try was actually, instead of having, was just like having this be blank. So I actually want to try making, I want this to be like totally white. So, and then I'm going to make, I want this to look like a museum placard. So I'm going to do this. And now I'm going, so I just dragged out another box. It's on the layer, it's on the text layer. So, and I'm going to write again, landscape with, I'm going to hit enter, invisible hand. I'm going to find Revier. This time I'm going to try it with medium. And I want it to be bigger than medium, be a little bit bigger since this is after all the title. And then I'm going to make a white box. I'm going to have it on layer shapes, my shapes layer. And I'm going to make this a plain paper box. Cancel. What I just did was I clicked down with the rectangle tool, so it thought that I wanted to make another rectangle. And now I can see how my text looks on this placard. I can maybe give it a little shadow by, I could actually use an effect called drop shadow, which would be going to object, effects, and here I could add a drop shadow on it. I would want to hit preview. And I can actually just move this, let's move the angle of the drop shadow. Hit OK. So that drop shadow is there just because I want to indicate that it's off of the wall. Like this is a wall and this is that. But I actually don't really like drop shadows. I think they're usually not so nice looking. So instead I'm going to just use this. I just duplicated this box and I'm going to make it black. And now I'm going to move that behind the white rectangle. And I'm just going to offset it a little bit. And that will make it look like a shadow. I can also tint it so that way it's not quite so so stark. And then I can get M.T. Anderson but in this design I would probably want it to be a lot smaller. M.T. Anderson, author feed. And then a brilliant biting satire. There, and that's my second book cover idea. Now if I wanted to move things around, I could select, and then continue selecting, and now I can, let's say I wanted to move, let's say I want to move this, but I don't want to move this. So I'm going to lock that underneath, and then move this down, because I think it needed some more space. And the idea here is that this is a pretty satisfying color design just because there's variety in the colors, even though it's just black and white. We could add textures to make this look more special or anything else. But before you get into textures and other things, you just want to make sure that you have like the good bones for a design.